Welcome. Welcome to our webinar in the HubSpot Data Suite for, well, I would say non-data friendly, but we welcome all data people, friendly or non. I'm going to go through some high-level pieces about data, some different features within HubSpot that you can leverage to own your data, keep it clean, keep it organized, and just some process around thinking around it. So I'm Ryan. I own our revenue and solutions architecture function at Aptitude. We're a HubSpot elite partner. And with me is Cara.
Hey everyone, I'm Cara. I'm a product manager at HubSpot and I work on our data quality tools. So excited to speak with you all today and dive into some more detail. But I'll let Ryan kick it off.
Cool. Awesome. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. A couple of things. So first, we're going to walk through data modeling within HubSpot, including using custom objects, as well as data model overview within HubSpot. We're going to go through some data cleanliness tools that HubSpot has, where you can keep data ongoing, the command center, using some automation recommendations as well, going through making sure that you can not only build the data model that matches your business using all the tools that HubSpot provides, but also being able to keep it clean and helping you to scale, reduce the amount of effort. The people on this call are probably a mix of CRM managers, marketing folks, executives, etc. I think this will be helpful for everybody. And going through, just talking a little bit about why HubSpot for your data, why keep everything in here. And I'll give it to Cara to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, so like I said, very excited to connect with you all today. But before we dive into some of the features, let's talk about the value of that data within HubSpot. And we all know data drives business decisions, and HubSpot can really support that throughout a customer journey, from a prospect to a really great customer. So with all of that relevant info in one place, in an easy to access, understandable format, you can be confident your teams really have the info they need to make informed decisions, communicate with your customers, and grow your business. But really to leverage that data effectively within a CRM, you also need to think about the structure of that data, the quality, and the foundational elements of setup, monitoring, and cleaning that data can help build trust in your organization that your data is an accurate picture of your customer, which hopefully will unlock a lot for you and your teams. So we'll.
Yeah, I was gonna say, one thing I think that I know that I see frequently is that HubSpot is not just a marketing tool, it's not just a sales tool, but the ability to flex and expand the system to house data that maybe isn't directly related to a sales process or a service process, as an example, but is adjacent or helpful. So I think of service, I think of like product usage data, right? Being able to structure HubSpot in a way that you can bring in information that's contextually important for marketing, sales, service activities, and doing it in a way that doesn't get in the way, but is available for reporting and linking into deals and those types of things is where I think HubSpot really shines. So there's the basics of it. I think what we're going to focus on today is the sort of expanded use in ways you can do all of that, which I think probably transitions to my next slide. I think it does. On data modeling. So as I just mentioned, the interesting thing about HubSpot is not just the hubs that it provides, but the ability to store information that's contextually relevant for marketers, sales, service folk. And definitely important to understand what is going on in your database. So one of the common things that happens, especially as an organization expands, a lot of information gets put in there, sometimes well thought out, sometimes not. And I know it can be a bit messy, but having a very firm understanding of the makeup of your HubSpot instance and how your data is structured is absolutely critical to either fixing any sort of structural issues, but also layering an additional piece of information. So you have to know how things are structured so you can figure out what the best place to put some additional pieces of information. So HubSpot provides a visual data model overview, which we'll see an image of it in a second, but allows you to actually visualize and create kind of a narrative. So one thing definitely is potential redundancies. So frequently something that happens with custom objects, especially, but also just as far as using properties across other objects, is you have a lot of redundancy or gaps. So if you need a clear understanding of where information should go, you don't have an object that's called contacts or contacts history or subscriptions, subscription history, any of those types of things. If you tell a story about your particular sales, service, marketing process, and you hit on each sort of major set of information, you should end up in a place that actually spells out which objects you should have. The data model overview allows you to visualize that and not have to memorize how information treks through your system across 3 to 15 or 20 different objects. Everything that the data model overview covers is really foundational to your CRM. So I mentioned telling that sort of narrative. A simple example is something like we as a company sell products, object, in a sale, in a deal, right? We sell to companies. Those companies have contacts. At some point, they are going to need a service appointment. That's now an object, right? We're also going to need to track tickets, which could be a service appointment. Maybe we need history. So it's a way to kind of structure how someone goes through your flywheel, and at each major bucket of information, whether or not you have a clear place to put that information. Sometimes using custom objects or standard objects, well, we'll talk about that actually in a second. But information can live in one or both of those, but the ability to actually visualize it helps, so you don't have to trek across, like I said, 10, 15, 20, objects if you've got a lot of custom stuff in there, and allows you to see the direct relationships. So if you're not understanding why you can't pull something in a report or a workflow, you can come right to the data model overview, take a look and say, oh, I don't have this kind of relationship between the subscription history object and my company's object. That's why I can't pull it. So I need to add that relationship in. So custom objects are a way to take you well beyond what HubSpot offers. So like I said, the HubSpot CRM allows you to store information that's contextual as well as direct. So in a situation where you sell products, have some special service process, like I mentioned, appointments or subscriptions, where HubSpot doesn't provide something standard and you want to house that data, you can create custom objects, which is available with any enterprise hub. So in an instance, you've got line items on a deal. After somebody becomes a customer, you want to then reference what products they have. May or may not make a lot of sense to constantly have to go reference a history of deals. You just want to store a library of currently active products that they have. Well, in that exact sense, there's not necessarily the best way to store that in HubSpot on a standard object. So you might create a custom object called assets, called something of that nature that you can reference against any of the existing objects. A common use case also is like a history of upgrades or downgrades for a SaaS product. And you want to control and report on that as well. So the ability to house information that's not out of the box, put it in a different place, it's not always the best solution. There are plenty of situations where using a custom object doesn't make sense, specifically where HubSpot already provides a standard object for it. But frequently in a sense where we've got different types of hierarchies and relationships. So in certain cases, things like parent-child may not give you exactly what you need because you've got 15 different levels of relationships and they're not all vertical. Being able to create sort of like a container object is another example. And I mentioned history before is a common use case. So the schools is an area that we see custom objects being used really well. And I think that the framework that we generally go through is if the information is contained inside of a contact, so, and it's not just a description about the contact or that particular object. So we've got contacts. Is it just a type of contact? Great, let's just use contacts and either an association label as it relates to another object or a property to define the different types of contacts. But if we need information about that contact that's completely different, like a contact's accreditations, as an example, we're not necessarily going to want to create a property that we're going to need to update, a drop down with 7,000 different options that all also contain details. So we would probably want to create a custom object to reference that contact's accreditations, as an example. Real estate is another example where custom objects are a really great use case. So you've got a property, it's listing, with hiring, something that we actually use internally, right? We've got sort of a candidate pipeline, we've got a job that's related, offers, those types of things, all great use cases for custom objects. Anything that needs to be emailed, not a good use case. You're going to be copying things over into the contacts, since HubSpot leverages the contact for all email. You could certainly have information in a custom object, you're just going to be constantly copying it over. The example that I mentioned before, where you've got what is essentially just a different flavor of contact. So lead versus customer, employee, prospective employee, those types of things. You can use association labels, you can use drop downs on the actual object to differentiate. You don't necessarily need something that's entirely custom. It's very easy to kind of get a little go a little wild with custom objects, and every time you need something that appears to be different, you create a new custom object. But again, I think if you opt for always trying to use a standard object where possible, great situation, great solution, keep it simple. But more often than not, you're going to have some piece of information that is related to, but not a part of, a HubSpot standard object. And that's where custom objects come in to save the day. So talk a little about data cleanliness, which I know is a thorn in everybody's side all the time. I'm going to turn it over to Cara to walk through some of this information.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Before I jump into that, do we have any questions? Just looking in the chat. Feel free to drop those in and we can answer as we go, or at the end. But would love to dive into data cleanliness. So, with clean data, right, you can ensure your teams have accurate, up-to-date, relevant info, all good things to help you engage with customers and prospects. It helps you power your reports, your automation, key business functions. But want to take a closer look at some of the features we have that can really help you maintain that clean database over time. So a new one that we released this year is validation rules. So this is a tool that can help you keep bad data out. We have this new feature in public beta, which validates data as it's being entered. And that means better decision-making, better customer experience, because you can ensure your properties are formatted in a way that you'd expect. And some specific examples of this are you can set rules for custom text and number properties to be a certain length. And it really helps you remove the worry of human error, of other people messing with your data. And some examples of specific rules you could set are min and max character limits, restricting values to numeric characters only, or disallowing special characters. So depending on the data points that you're storing for your business, you may want to restrict to certain values so that when you're reporting on it, you can ensure all the values are of a certain format. Another example is with currencies or setting a certain numeric range. If you have a certain product or customer value, you can actually limit to a certain range. And I want to actually show this in the product so you can get a feel of, when you actually set this up, how does this work? So as an example, if you came in and wanted to set a specific range for currency, you could create a new property. Let's say it's a contact property. And let's say it's product currency, just a test property. We want it to be number. It's actually currency, so set it up as that. And now we have these new validation rules where you can limit, min and max, limit the number of decimal places. We want 2 decimal places if it's a currency. Let's say we want it to be, the max this can actually be is 1,000. We don't want any more than that. If it is, it's not accurate. You can create that property, and then within a record, you can see this actually validate in real time. So let's see my product currency. Let's say I try to put in, too high of a value, then I will immediately get a warning. It actually needs to be 1,000 or less. So you can have these checks in place now to actually prevent bad data from being saved in your records, which is a great way to ensure when you're not the one inputting the data or other teammates are in there in the day-to-day, you can standardize and make that consistent. So I want to transition to another feature.
Actually, I want to add one thing on validation.
Yeah, sure.
So data validation is somebody who spent a fair amount of time in ops and building, managing CRMs for sales, marketing, any of those things. I think it's a double-edged sword. Too much validation. So we want to have some level of rigid data structure. It's really important for reporting, for everything to be accurate. I would say be mindful of allowing some level of flexibility in certain situations to enter certain information. If there are too many requirements for somebody to enter data, they will often just skip other things that aren't required. So while you want to make sure to have some level of safeguards to prevent bad data, nothing is a complete replacement for training and purpose and all of those things. So validation is a great complement to do, where things can be botched and make a huge difference, right? If somebody puts in a number that's too high, validation rules are an incredible use case for that. You can certainly overdo it. So I would say where simple training, low risk, error, a lot of times can be a good balance. So you have some validation rules, but not on everything.
Yeah, it's a good call. You also, want to be conscious of time, and when you get that information, when it's input into the CRM, you don't want to block, your reps or your users from being able to enter data either, in certain contexts. So yeah, really good call out.
That's where just property names also can matter a lot to try and be descriptive.
Yeah,
and accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Let's take a look at another new data focused feature that also doesn't require specific data expertise to use. It's called the Data Quality Command Center, and it helps you monitor your data on an ongoing basis. And the whole premise here is you can't fix what you can't find, and a lot of times bad data will bubble up in unexpected ways, or when it's too late, like a customer communication has gone out, or you notice it downstream. And in this new tool, you can get at a glance insights on the health of your HubSpot data in one place. So identifying stale properties, data sync bottlenecks, and more, so you can get ahead of problems before they snowball and become much bigger. As you add in new integrations, run imports, or reps add more data to the CRM, it can be really difficult to keep tabs on that whole system and data quality over time. So for ops teams, this can mean that really reactive process when you notice that data. And that's where the data quality command center comes in. We're starting to monitor that more proactively, help teams have a place really to go and monitor that over time and have actual steps to clean it up with their team. So you can think of this as a home base for operations to monitor and clean everything from your data setup, so properties to records, formatting issues and duplicates. And we have data sync on here as well. So with a view like this, for the first time, we have a centralized place. These used to be in disparate locations throughout HubSpot, and now we're bringing this into one place where you can prioritize and take action. But for a specific use case, right, if you went to a conference, you gathered a bunch of data, you have it in a CSV for the people that came to your booth, how those names and emails are recorded may be different from what you have in your CRM if you have any overlap, right? And there may be consistencies, there may be inconsistencies in terms of names and emails, and we wanted to make it really easy to identify those records and either merge them or reformat them to ensure that the data within HubSpot is quality. So let's take a look at how that will actually work within the command center. So this is the data quality command center. We have properties, record, insights. In this case, we're really interested in seeing, are there new duplicates, records with formatting issues. We brought in the duplicates tool into this experience. You can come in right away, take a look at potential duplicates that we use AI to match based on name, email, phone number. And in this case, Franz, we have Franz Lace at PieSync.com. We also have Franz at PieSync.com. Looks like a duplicate. You can take action here right away. We also added the ability to do this in bulk. So if you have multiple that are duplicates, you can take action and merge right from here. Really, hopefully, making that process of finding potential duplicates easier, more proactive versus finding them later down the line. Anything you'd want to add there, Ryan, in terms of?
No, there were a couple questions around duplicate management, around deals, and also like tiers where some of these features are available.
Yes. So it's only available for contacts and companies right now. Would love to hear feedback around deals and how you would like that experience to work. It's not something we have on our roadmap right now, but would be very curious to hear some of the attributes that you see duplicate deals come in on. And the actual duplicates tool, so what you saw here, this is available for all pro tiers. The ability to do this in bulk is an Operations Hub feature, Operations Hub Pro. And the data quality command center, the centralized view, is Operations Hub Pro as well. Did I answer all the questions there?
I think there was the validation, which is the field validation.
Okay, that's available for everyone. Yeah, everyone, so it's in beta still. But yeah, any tier from free and above. So you could check it out in the free CRM as well.
There's a question actually here on validation. Can we allow data to be entered, but send a warning so it can be manually evaluated?
That's
technically, I'd love to hear your approach to that.
Yeah, so right now it's once you set the rule, you can't save the value. So once it is a rule, you can't save the value is invalid based on the rule. What is interesting though about that is before you set a rule, you may have data that may not fit that validation, right? So like that you want to pull into that property. We haven't solved that use case yet. So you can't set these on existing properties, only newly created ones, custom ones. So that's something we'll definitely be thinking about in the future, is how do we handle, if bad data does get in, how to review that and make sure that it
You could also,
expectations.
depending on which hubs you have, you could actually run a workflow to check that field's value, and then depending on how intricate you want to get, if you have Operations Hub and you needed to cross-reference that against something else, maybe you need a custom code action, maybe you can just do it within a workflow. And then if it does or does not meet whatever criteria, then you can send a notification to somebody. So somebody entered, in a drop down, they entered this value at this stage, and then that's not supposed to be there. You can always run a workflow to check for it to make sure that the value is correct. If not, it triggers like a notification to them. Hey, this is wrong. So probably better to get it before they even do it. But in a certain situation, if you do want like a manual review, you could run it through a workflow as well.
Yeah, that's good. Good idea. Awesome. So I mentioned formatting issues and duplicates. I'll show formatting issues in a little bit. We also have the new property insights. So this is diving into the actual structure of your data. Do your properties have any uses across HubSpot? Are there other apps that are referencing those properties? Do any records have a value for that property? So what's the fill rate? And this could be really useful to make decisions around, what properties do I need for a workflow, for a list, for a report, as well as understanding where the data is coming from. So another part of this in the command center is we actually surface, for individual properties, you can see where the data is coming from over time. Is it coming from workflows? Is it coming from forms? To give you context on that that data flow and understand, are we seeing inputs from workflows? Is it mostly from a particular integration? If something goes wrong, it gives you more visibility into those data connections. And lastly, we also have insights into data sync health. So the command center will show you total number of connected data sync apps, as well as a daily report of sync issues. So you can actually dig into, are there errors? Is it actively syncing? And take action on those if there are any failures.
One thing that happens with those especially with sync errors, a lot of times they go unnoticed, and someone from an external system doesn't see that. Eventually it goes back and looks and says, oh my God, we haven't gotten data on this in a week. And I didn't realize until I was building a list or pulling that information. So being proactive on that, especially seeing things that are recurring, if there's something blocking it from happening, and getting ahead of that will save a ton of headache down the line.
Yeah, 100%. This is the hope here is that, instead of going in and manually checking individual apps, you have one place to check, all of data sync, and you can see if there are any recurring errors.
I know in the past, process has been like minimum once a week, go and check like the Salesforce connector or something. Like, is anything broken? So I think that any of those connectors, to be able to have one place, quick check, don't have to do too much of a deep dive, or it tells you what's going on there.
Yeah, I will say, so right now the current version, it's just data sync. We don't have some of our other integrations. So the Salesforce integration isn't on there at this point, but our goal is to cover all integrations, so that it's the one-stop shop to monitor. I'm going to jump into automation. So all of this monitoring is great, but can you automate some of those simple, more repetitive tasks away? And we have a new feature called automation recommendations, which has AI-based suggestions on reformatting data for standard properties. So contact, first name, last name, email. We will detect these for you and allow you to make quick fixes. No data expertise needed. Those suggestions alone are in Operations Hub Starter, but we have the ability to actually automatically accept those suggestions for some of those simpler use cases like capitalization, right out of the box in Operations Hub Pro. So similar scenario, if you have a bunch of new data, or you just have data coming in on an ongoing basis, and you want to ensure that it's formatted correctly, whether you're using it for personalization tokens or other outreach, we have the ability to check those formatting issues. So, for example, in this case, there might be a placeholder, so last name, name, or the capitalization doesn't seem right. You can accept those manually, and we'll automatically change the record. The real power here is within automation. It's a few of the rules are 2-click automations. You can capitalize first name, last name, and ensure, when a suggestion comes up, when we find one of these, we will automatically fix it for you. You can save that.
Because no one likes getting an email and your name was merged in and it's, all lowercase.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's like you're not trying very hard, right? You want to come off as professional.
Yeah. And once this is turned on, you can also see, where those changes are happening, a quick audit. And this is outside of workflows. This is just a simple cleanup based on the insights that we have. So you don't need to go build something separate to manage some of these over time. Hopefully this makes it a lot easier to take care of some of those simpler data fixes that come up time and time again. And that's all I have for the data cleanliness portion. Happy to dive into any of these features more, and any questions you have, we'll open it up to more Q&A.
Sure, I'll take, there's actually a question that I think someone asked a little while ago. Selling software licenses of subscriptions and maintenance in relation to custom objects. So yes, the short answer is yes. So if you need a record of things that were line items on deals, as an example, and need to reference them later for workflows, emails, visibility in portals, and that information contains a lot of detailed data that you may or may not want to directly update, storing those as a custom object is definitely the right place to put that. So think of it as, in a sense, a reflection of product library, but you have specific data related to that particular customer. So tracking usage, the last time, like what version they're on, is a good place if you're selling on-prem software. Definitely a place, and then all information you can copy over into a contact segment list based on all of that. And yes, the short answer is yes, definitely custom objects are a great use case for that. Cara, there's a question on validations for email address. I'm not exactly sure what that means, other than looking for, I'm guessing, for parts of an email. I don't know if you have those visuals.
So yeah, so there's a few things. I'm guessing this is about like, is this a legit email? Like, will we be able to send to this email? We have integrations with third parties that will check that. But the other thing I always recommend is, if you try to send them, you can see like bounce rates. So we have that data within HubSpot, so you can clean up any records that have previously bounced. But I'd say either take a look at your existing database. If you're trying to look at brand new records, that's going to be a little trickier, and we don't have, immediate insights on contact bounce rates. So
how do you suggest people go about leveraging validation rules for currently existing properties?
Yeah, it's tricky right now because
That's putting you on the spot with like a tough question. I'm sure.
Yeah, we're still working on this, and I'll definitely pass this feedback along to the team, because we know, new properties isn't going to cover a lot of your database, especially if you're an established customer. And so we're definitely thinking about how we can do this in the future. Right now it's going to be tough. I think the best option is, if you have a critical property and you want to make sure there's validation, creating a new property will be the easiest way to do that.
Just be mindful of any lists, workflows.
Exactly. Yeah.
And all those types of things. It's a migration.
Yes.
Don't underestimate the lift. That's really important, especially the older your instances, the more that's built out, more likely it is that particular property exists and is used in a lot of different places. HubSpot has some cool tools to be able to help you identify where those places are. But yeah, you're doing them. Let's see what else. Time pickers, property time. Ooh, product is a request. The time pickers, property time.
It's a really good question. I'm happy to pass that along to the team as well. I'm curious, like what you would use that for, just so I have context on the use case.
Yeah, I'm sure anyone's with us that has questions, suggestions. I'm sure Cara would love to hear all of the different use cases.
Here's my email. Feel free to reach out to me.
Absolutely. And let's see, any other questions? Look at all those. Thanks to everyone for showing up today. I hope this was helpful. We will also be sending out a follow-up as well, get the recording. And like we mentioned, if there are any specific questions, definitely email us. Any just specific use cases you want to run through, I'm sure Cara would be happy to. I'll volunteer her time. Be happy to hear this, and hope everyone has a great rest of your day.